Welcome to another episode of Wild and Well. Today I'm joined by holistic nutritionist and healthy recipe creator Nicole Inwentash, and we're going to be chatting about a whole bunch of different things, including gut health, her journey to discovering gut health, and it's a very interesting journey. I can't wait to hear about it. And also how we can create healthy recipes and healthy food at home without so much overwhelm. So I'm thrilled to have you here, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming on to talk to us. But before we get into all of that, can you just tell us one thing that you did today to take care of you?
Yeah, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. A big non-negotiable for me that I like to try to focus on incorporating daily is movement. So I woke up very early in the morning, around 5:30 a.m., and did a 6 a.m. workout. So that's a really big, healthy, must-have that I like to incorporate every single day or as often as I can to just move my body.
Yeah, it makes all the difference when you get up early and you get that movement in.
Yeah, just I find like for me doing it first thing in the morning, it's one and done. You don't have to think about it all day. The biggest takeaway is you just have to get into bed by 10:30 latest so you get that proper sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have things like that scheduled in early because that does force you to go to bed early, and that sleep is so nourishing when you have those early hours of the evening in bed.
For sure. Yes.
So can you share a little bit about yourself and the many areas of work that you're in?
Yeah, so I kind of like to start off by saying I'm a holistic nutritionist, but my finger is in many different pies. I work at a clinic. I have my own private business where I've been a practicing nutritionist for almost 12 years, where I work with clients one-on-one, help people eat healthy, lose weight, heal their digestion, pick healthier choices. For the last 2 years, I've been creating a healthy product that I cannot share yet, but hopefully soon. And then recently, I just announced that a company started purchasing some of my healthy, gluten-free, and dairy-free baked goods, which is really exciting and also a passion of mine. So I do many different things, but it keeps me busy and it's fun. Nutrition, you can diversify in different areas.
And where did you go to school for your holistic nutrition?
I went to the Institute of Holistic Nutrition.
That's in Toronto, is that right?
Yeah, it's in Toronto. I went in 2013. And back then, I remember when I first decided I wanted to enroll in IHN, so many people around me didn't really know what the term holistic nutrition was. It sounded very hokey. People thought it was like witchcraft. It was really funny when I decided I wanted to become a holistic nutritionist. But I'll never forget my mom telling me, you just wait. In 15 years, this industry is going to be booming. And she's so right because I look at social media. Everyone wants to become a nutritionist. It's incredible the transformation in the last 15 years where people have really focused on the quality of the food that they're eating.
Yeah, that's incredible that you had that foresight and that interest at that time, and also that your mother was supportive of that
Yeah,
because sometimes people of older generations are less likely to be that way. So that must have been so helpful.
for sure. Yeah.
So, can you tell us about your journey into holistic nutrition and gut health? It started back in high school, is that correct?
Yeah, so in high school, I started getting a lot of digestive issues happening I was getting bloating, I was dealing with some inflammation. I was soon then diagnosed with an autoimmune condition called ulcerative colitis, but I was dealing with two different issues. I had my ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease on the one side, and I was also dealing with chronic constipation, bloating, indigestion. So usually that doesn't really happen with both of them. And at that time, I was feeling like no foods were ever agreeing with me. I felt bloated, low energy all the time. I visited many different gastros across Toronto. And the common phrase I kept hearing over and over and over again was eat more fiber, drink more water. And I became exhausted with hearing that. And not to, say that it isn't great to have both of those things, but sometimes you need to do a bit of a deeper dive into what is going on and what is the root cause. So that's when my mom, again, shout out to my mom, suggested that I visit a food sensitivity practitioner who would test me on a bunch of different foods. And I went to this food sensitivity practitioner. I was really open-minded, and she came back with the results and shared with me that gluten, dairy, and corn were extremely high. Now, at that time, my grandmother was celiac, my mom was probably celiac, so I knew about gluten-free living, but I wasn't so sure if this was going to help me. I decided, you know what? I'm so desperate to feel better. I'm going to cut out gluten, dairy, and corn for 1 month and see how I feel, and then I'll figure out next steps. Within 2 weeks, I started to feel so much better, so much to the point where I get routine colonoscopies. Every single time my GI would do a colonoscopy, and I would get them every 2 years, he would tell me that my inflammation had gone down. And I used to always say to him, it's diet. And he would say to me, that's BS. I said, okay, well, something's changing in my gut. So I think it's really interesting how food can play a really big power in terms of how you feel and heal your body. And that's why I went back to school and became a holistic nutritionist and wanted to do this for a living and help people after seeing the transformation in my journey.
Yeah, very cool. And you
Yeah.
also, I read an article that you recently had out about your fecal microbiota transplantation. Can you talk about this? Because everywhere people are talking about the microbiome, but we
Mm.
don't always hear about the different ways that we can support our microbiome and we can totally change our microbiome.
Yeah, no, the gut microbiome is extremely fascinating. And I'm a walking example how someone's gut microbiome can literally heal someone who's had not the healthiest gut microbiome. So, just to explain a little bit about what happened and how I got there. For most of my life, my UC, my ulcerative colitis was pretty mild. I was able to, feel like medication here and there, but nothing too serious. I went through a lot of trauma and traumatic, stressful events that happened. And I think stress was the culprit that kind of just set off my gut imbalance. And I also had to go on antibiotics as well, which also didn't do the best for my gut. And at that time, I noticed I started getting really bad flares that came out of nowhere. And for I'd say the first 3 years of this happening, I was able to control them with a steroid enema. I never took oral steroids, but just a steroid enema, which cleared it up. Then in 2023, quite recently, I was hit with the worst flare of my life to the point where I didn't really tell many people, only my coworkers and my family and closest people knew because it was so impactful on my daily living that I tried to not let it be this way, but I was so scared that I wouldn't be near a bathroom and it took a toll on my mental health. So I said, you know what? I need to do something about this because I tried the cortisone enemas again. They didn't work this time. And my GI met with me and he said, Nicole, we have to scope you right now. Because I was bawling in his office. I'm like, this is not normal. Like, I eat so healthy. What is going on? And he scoped me. He said, this is really serious. We have to get you started on prednisone. And those words just like made me I had no, I was like shaking in his office. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I've never been on any steroid minus the enema version in my entire life. And he knew, and he was so respectful of that, that prednisone was like the last resort. And I said, okay, fine, let me think about this. Spoke to my naturopath. She said, Nicole, this is really serious. You'll be on a low dose. You'll be fine. I went on prednisone. I think it was 8 weeks. It did not work for me. I went back to my GI and he said, this is really bad, Nicole. You're going to have to do an infusion or something. I'm like, I'm not doing infusions, which is there's biologics and no disrespect to people that do it. Listen, you have to do what works best for your body. And I'm so a believer of that. But for me, in my own personal journey, I just didn't want to go that route. So I remember a friend of mine had did something called FMT, fecal microbiota transplant or fecal matter transplant, and I wanted to learn more about it. And what I found out is that in Toronto, the only way to get FMT done, well, it's really Ontario, is if you have C. difficile, which is a bacterial infection, you can only get it done in the hospital. And you have to have C. difficile. If you have an IBD, like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, the only way to do it, I think actually in Canada, is through clinical trial. And you have to be accepted. And there's one at McMaster in Hamilton. And there's only a 20% success rate. So very low. I said to my GI, listen, with all due respect, I don't want to start the infusions. Am I a candidate for FMT? I really want to try this route. And he was so positive. He said, listen, Nicole, I'm going to be honest. FMT can be really beneficial for some patients, but not for everyone. I'll give you the go ahead. I'll send you a referral. So I went and got scoped in Hamilton. They said, as long as you have active inflammation, you get accepted to the trial. If you don't, then you can't be a participant. And how it works is you go every single week for 8 weeks and they give you an enema. You don't know who your stool donor is. You don't know if they're male or female. I wish I knew that information, but I don't know anything. And then after 8 weeks, they scope you again. If you've had no change, they remove you from the trial. If you've had slight change, then you continue for 8 weeks. In best case scenario, which is on the rarer side, you go from completely healed where there's no signs of UC or inflammation. I was that success story. So I went from I'd say moderate severe UC to zero signs of UC. So it's pretty incredible, my story, just to show you how powerful the microbiome is and how someone's microbiome can really heal someone who has had a lot of inflammation. And I always say, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm sure people taking capsules of, Gwyneth Paltrow's stool, who knows? Like, people just want to like look, or whoever it is, right? So it is amazing. It's not a gross situation. It's very, natural. And to me, I just would rather have explored the natural road than go the infusion road. But again, I don't, disrespect anyone that has their own viewpoint. So that's my story.
Yeah, and the route that you took, it's actually changing your microbiome in your gut rather than just dealing with symptoms, right? So it's something that long term should have a greater effect, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been doing now FMT for when did I start? 2023. So it's almost 2 years now. And I've had no symptoms. I've had nothing. Like, thankfully, knock on wood, everything's been okay. But yeah, it does change your gut microbiome for sure. I haven't seen any changes in the sense of positive changes in terms of, daily like digestion, but I'd say as long as I don't have any signs of UC, that's good for me.
Yeah. And you say that you've been doing it for 2 years. Is it something that you have to do every once in a while to keep it up, or do those new microbes like proliferate in your digestive tract?
Yeah, good question. So basically what happens is when you're on the maintenance dose, which is what I'm on, now I go once a month for 3 years. However, the team at McMaster, they're amazing that they always say, if you ever see one sign, whether that's, mucus or blood or any inflammation, come back in, we'll get you in weekly. Or if you want to continue after 3 years, you can, which is so amazing for Canada. Because I remember I did a talk at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico near San Diego. And I was sharing this, and every single person was like so emotional because they knew someone who had experienced what I had. And they said there's nothing like that that exists in the US. And the only ways that you can do this, because I explored so many, there's a clinic in London, or it's 2 hours away from London, but you go for 10 days. And then what happens after 10 days? You might be healed in those 10 days, but what if it comes back? It's also extremely expensive. And then there's maybe a clinic or two for kids that's in Barbados or the Caribbean. So it's very hard to find these specific trials. And that's why I'm so grateful that I've had this opportunity to be able to be in this trial.
Yeah, go Canada. The
Yeah,
first
go
time that I heard
Canada.
about FMT was I used to live in Australia, and it was from an Australian who had
Dr.
taken her.
Brody. Was it Dr. Brody? Because
No.
he's the Australian that started FMT.
Oh, okay. But
He's from
there it was actually a lady who took her son and like her and herself to Canada to do it. So there's something about Canada, but I didn't realize it started in Australia.
Yeah, because my friend who I reached out to, he was so, so sick. He had Crohn's and colitis. He lost 70 pounds. His mom was desperate to help him. And he did his own research and he found Dr. Brody in Australia. And there was no clinical trial at this time. So Dr. Brody actually advised him what to do is his mom became his stool donor. And like they cleared it, sanitized it, sent it to a lab, and it healed him, and it was amazing. And there's a really good documentary if you're interested. It's called Designer Shit, and the producer has UC, and she also stars in it, and she talks about her experience. And her fiance, then husband, was also her stool donor, and they interview a lot of people who were stool donors for the partners. And there's a really funny story that there was a pregnant woman and she was a stool donor for her husband. And he actually started experiencing morning sickness because of the transfer of stool. So it's just funny how like your hormones and everything's built in your gut. So, but all amazing success stories.
Yeah. And if it is so hard to get in and you have to meet certain criteria to get there and get the okay, there's so many steps there preventing people that this is great that people are doing it on their own if that's working. I'm gonna
Yeah.
definitely, I'll link that in the show notes and
Yeah,
I'll
it's
have to
really
look it
good.
up.
It's funny, it's not boring, it's informative, but it's light and fun and it's a great movie.
Amazing. So you'll be doing this for the 3 years, I guess one more year, and then see where you go after that.
Yeah, I'm really scared to stop doing it, to be honest. But I've been now 2 years doing it and I feel good. So I'll see. Yeah.
What do they typically see with people? Because you wouldn't be the first one going through this. Somebody else must have already hit the 3 years. And what has their trajectory been after that?
So everyone is a different donor. So I think what I have is like the super donor. So I think this person, whoever they are, thank you, has really healed me, but my donor might not have helped someone else. So everyone, like I know someone who tried this and she had to try a few different donors. And still, I don't know how well it worked for her. So sometimes it's about finding that right donor match. But I don't know if there's what happens after the 3 years for some people. I feel like a lot of people are probably similar to me and scared to stop.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. So, when it comes to gut health, what are some early warning signs that people might often miss that are indicating that something could be wrong?
I think most people think that chronic bloating is normal. That's like the number one thing I always hear. And I'm not to say I never get bloated, 100% I get bloated, but I also know what is causing me to bloat. I've worked with so many clients where they'll go from eating one way to a completely different way of eating. And they'll say to me, wow, I always thought that like it's normal to bloat at the end of the day, or it's normal to feel bloated, just means I'm full. And I would say, yeah, it is normal to feel full. It's normal to get bloated, but you should be able to pinpoint. So if you're chronically bloated and you feel like you have a lot of gas or there's something going on in your gut, it usually screams food sensitivity or something you're eating. So paying attention to that, and what the best way to do that is writing in a food diary and then just tracking days that you feel bloated and tracking days that you don't, and then seeing if there's a correlation between something you're eating and how you feel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so you're saying that it's normal to sometimes get bloated because of certain foods that we may eat, but it's not normal to have that like as a daily thing.
For sure. Like I know if I eat too many cruciferous veggies, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, like any of that stuff, always cooked for me. I would never touch it raw. That's going to make me not feel my best. But if you have, I don't know, let's say a smoothie, and then right after that smoothie, you have this crazy, gut distension and you can't put your pants on, then I would go a bit deeper and say, okay, well, what's in that smoothie? Are you not digesting the protein powder? Is there a vegetable in there that you're having a hard time digesting? You shouldn't feel so bloated every single time you eat a meal.
And for you to be cooking your cruciferous vegetables all the time, is that for your own digestion, or is that something that you recommend for most people because they are just harder to digest vegetables?
To be honest, I don't really eat a ton of cruciferous veggies, but if I did, I would cook them only just because raw is going to be even harder to digest. I occasionally will have some broccoli, but it's very rare. I don't eat cabbage. I'll occasionally have Brussels sprouts. I don't really eat cauliflower. I kind of just pick and choose veggies that I know I'm going to feel good on, but usually I do a lot more cooked. When I was in my worst flare of my life, I couldn't eat a single vegetable, which was really hard for me. I could only really eat sweet potato, squash, brown rice, gluten-free bread, avocado. I couldn't have any vegetables. So that was really challenging. So if you're someone who's in a flare, all veggies should be kind of off limits until your gut's healed.
And is that because of the fiber and they're just a lot harder on the digestive
Yeah,
tract?
just everything kind of just wants to get out of you, and it's just too much for your system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some shifts that people can make to their diet and to what they eat to support their gut health? Like, what are small things and big things that we can do just for the average person?
I mean, I think a lot of people don't usually drink enough water, and I do think that's important. So if they can aim for at least 2 to 3 liters of water every single day, it's really good. I also think avoiding processed foods to the best they can. You don't need to make crazy elaborate. extremely healthy meals at all times, but just focusing on eliminating processed foods, refined sugars, that's already going to make such a difference in your gut.
Yeah, that's really big, isn't it? It's a hard one though, because they're so accessible.
Yes, I agree, but I also find nowadays there are so many amazing healthy alternatives. And that's how say this phrase, healthy swaps, they make the biggest difference because there's so many times people will say to me, clients, family members, friends, I love this, like chips, chocolate, candy, is there one that's healthier? And I'll say, yeah, there's a healthier option that doesn't maybe have the artificial dyes or isn't sweetened with white sugar, sweetened with coconut sugar. So there are those changes that you can find on the market.
Yeah, it's so true. Or you can make some things at home if you have time as well. And I do
Yes.
a similar thing with my kids. They'll want what other kids are eating or what's at the grocery store. And I say to them, like, I'm not going to get you that one because of what's in it. And we talk about all the artificial ingredients and all the processing. But I say, I will either make something or we'll find an alternative that's going to taste even better and is going to be nourishing for your body. And you can find it. You may not find it in that minute, but you will find it soon enough or be able to figure out how to make it.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes people feel like healthy gets a bad rep. It's like, okay, if we find something healthy, it immediately is not going to taste good. So I feel like with kids too, you have to position it like, oh, there's something that has even better ingredients, or there's something that's going to make you feel even stronger. And I feel like when we take the healthy, not like, of course, I want people to know it's a healthier option, but I find with kids or even like some parents that are very stuck in their old ways. The second you say it's healthier, a lot of people's, I don't know, they're all like, well, then it must not taste good. It must taste like cardboard. So the
Yeah.
language is important. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's often the other way around. Like, I'll have my kids, sometimes I do let them eat the thing that's really processed from the grocery store just to experience it. And
Yeah.
they'll eat like a macaroon from there. I remember they had one, it was probably a year ago now, and they just were like, this is awful. Like, this doesn't taste like anything. And the little bit that you do taste is just fake. It was like fake cardboard. And then we went and had a real one and
Yeah.
with like real natural ingredients and a completely different experience. So I think the healthy actually, it does get a bad rap, but it actually tastes better because real
Oh,
ingredients are so flavorful, right?
Oh, 100%. And that's great that your kids who can differentiate between something that tastes with real ingredients versus processed, because that's a big thing too. I always say that to clients. The second you stop eating refined sugar, and let's say give your body a month, even 2 weeks, and then you have that first bite of birthday cake, you're feeling it. You're like, wow, this is really sweet. I feel sluggish. I feel lethargic. I feel bloated. And then you go to the natural birthday cakes and you enjoy them more because you can actually taste them and they don't taste fake.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing what that break can do.
Yeah.
So you talk about these healthy swaps a lot, like with your family, on your Instagram, in the recipes that you create. Can you walk us through some ideas of where we can get started with making healthy swaps in our lives?
Yeah. So do you mean like at grocery stores or in cookbooks or?
Yeah, let's think about like cookbooks. Like if somebody's wanting to create a recipe, how can we make some small tweaks to make it healthier?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Whenever my mom gives me cookbooks and she says make them NN approved, Nutritiously Nicole approved, the first thing I always check is what is the flour, what is the sugar, and what is the oil that they're calling for in that recipe. And if you can swap those three things, which usually you can, you're already making a much better recipe. So, for example, let's say a recipe calls for white flour. What I would do, if you want to keep the white flour, maybe you buy an unbleached organic white flour. But if you wanted to make it healthier, depending on what it was, maybe you pick a brown rice flour, quinoa flour, an almond flour, a whole wheat flour if you don't need to be gluten free. And then I find sugar is a big thing. Like some of these recipes I'll look at and it's asking for a cup of white sugar. And in my baking, I use anywhere from, I'd say half a cup is the most, and that's a lot, to a quarter cup. Like my banana bread, which is a very popular recipe, only has a quarter cup of maple syrup. You don't need a cup of sugar in a birthday cake or whatever you're making. If people are worried because they want things to taste sweet, then I say start with half a cup and just switch for any other sugar. I love coconut sugar. It's low glycemic. It doesn't spike your blood sugar. There's no weird aftertaste, and I find it's amazing in baking. And then the third change I'd make is the oil. So if something calls for canola oil, or vegetable oil. Those are more seed oils, inflammatory oils. I'd swap it for olive oil or coconut oil.
Those are so simple, aren't they?
Yeah, just small changes. And I know it can be overwhelming, but those three things will make the biggest difference in your recipe. And you also feel better and your gut will thank you.
Hmm. And those are manageable. Those are easy swaps. It's not that you're having to change the amount of flour and do all these different things. It's just about a little bit less sugar. Try to swap it out for a less processed version. Swap out the flour for a different type.
Exactly.
Very doable. And in terms of lifestyle changes, you were mentioning that stress was something that you think brought on more of your ulcerative colitis to get worse.
Mhm.
What are some lifestyle and stress management strategies that you recommend that you do yourself or you use with clients to help them with improving their gut health and their overall health in general? Because diet is so important, but we can't forget that other side, can we?
Yeah, so in addition to food, the two other like non-negotiables for me is water and sleep.
Mm.
Sleep is so important and people don't realize that. I make my bedtime extremely, like I'm very strict with my bedtime. It's 10 o'clock, 10:30 latest. And when I go to bed past then, it usually impacts my digestion, my mood, my food choices. So getting into bed earlier does help. And then the other non-negotiable is just moving your body. Fresh air makes such a difference. And you don't need to go to the gym and do like an hour of intense cardio. You can do 30 minutes of walking outside, 15 minutes in the morning. I even said on my Instagram the other day, whip out your vacuum, do some vacuuming around your house. Honestly, it's the best after dinner. I did it. I was sweating, but it's such a great way to get your heart rate up. It's good for, cardiovascular health and longevity to get, movement in after a meal. So I find if you can get enough sleep and go to bed early and really focus on movement, that can really help with stress. And when I do go for walks, I'll listen to podcasts or you can call a friend. Those are kind of some tips that I do.
Yeah, and those are very doable things. It's not like some weird and wonderful thing that we have to add in. It's sleep. We need sleep. We need movement.
For
I
sure.
absolutely agree that after meals, you do need to move, don't you? Just like a few minutes of cleaning is a great idea to do because often we think cleaning is this extra thing that we have to do. But if we reframe that as this is helping my digestion, this is helping me get some movement, helping my heart, all of that, we're more likely to do it. So that's a great idea.
And you also go to bed feeling better and lighter. Because if you think about it too, when people go and have their dinner, they're sitting at their kitchen table. Then what happens? They move to couch, then they move to bed, right? There's little activity that's happening there. Whereas if you said to yourself, okay, right after dinner, I'm vacuuming the house or I'm going for a walk, you're going to get into bed and be like, I feel so much better. The anxiety's lifted. I don't feel so bloated. I'm going to go to bed and have a better sleep. And then I'm on that trajectory for success for the next day where I'm going to wake up, feel motivated to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about meals, and there's a lot of moms that listen to this that are burnt out, they're overwhelmed, and they're making meals multiple times a day. What advice do you have for those who are feeling overwhelmed and just not motivated to cook anything or cook another meal? Like, how can we bring down the overwhelm?
Yeah, no, I know it's a question people tend to ask me often, and it's a great question because it can be overwhelming. I say make it simple. Like my big takeaway is keep proteins on hand and readily available. If you don't have proteins on hand, that's when people tend to find like they fall into a trouble zone because when you don't have the protein on hand, then you lean in more on what's fast and easy, cheese and crackers, bread, pasta. And it's not to say you can't have any of that, but if you have that protein, you can at least work around that meal. So what I suggest is keeping cans of wild salmon or tuna in your pantry. Whip it out anytime you need protein. Making, hard-boiled eggs for the week or frittata egg muffins. Make a big batch of it on a Sunday. Quick grab and go, lunch, snack, breakfast, whatever it is. Keeping deli meats that are nitrate free if you eat them, like organic nitrate free turkey, chicken, that's easy grab and go. Meat sticks are also amazing. There's a great company you can get in Canada called Nick Sticks. They're just grass-fed beef sticks. You can get them at any health food store. Um, Even making a batch of like boiled organic edamame, make sure it's organic, and keeping that in the fridge, quick salad topper. Even what else? Rotisserie chickens from the grocery store, ditch the skin. Just having those protein options available makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? I find that myself. Like when I think about making the meals throughout the week, I can get overwhelmed and just not want to cook if I don't have a start. But my husband on Sundays has started batch cooking like a bunch of chicken or some beef or whatever it is, protein.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we have that. And suddenly I have so many ideas for meals because the protein's there. I know what the option is. And I might make Indian and throw that in, or you make a soup
Exactly.
and add it in. And you suddenly have a full meal. And it's so
Yeah.
much easier because that one step is taken away.
100%. And that's when you have that chicken and that beef in front of you, you can now be really creative, as you said, like make, an Indian style dinner, or you could make a stir fry or whatever it is, but at least that protein, that main source is done, and that takes the thinking away.
Yeah. And what about making cooking more enjoyable? Like that we're taking out the overwhelm. So that does naturally make it more enjoyable. But you seem to have a lot of fun when you're cooking and baking and hosting people. What do you recommend? Like, how do you make it enjoyable, or how do you help your clients to have a bit more fun in the kitchen?
I think keeping recipes simple is really I find that's really helpful. If you present someone with a recipe that has like 50 ingredients, people are just going to dread it all day long. They're not going to be excited. I get a lot of joy because my recipes are really simple and easy and taste good. And there are also things that you can make in batch. So I usually tend to make double and then I have leftovers either for dinner the next day or for lunch. But being creative with recipes by either getting inspiration from, content creators or cookbooks and just focusing on ingredients, recipes that have less ingredients, I feel like is less intimidating when you're cooking and makes it more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, can you tell us a bit about creating these products that you have? Like, you have the s'mores out, and you said that there's some more of your food is coming out as well.
Yeah.
How did you get into doing that? Because that's really interesting that you're creating recipes and you're supporting people with nutrition. But this seems like a different side to it. So can you talk to us more about more of that entrepreneurial side, I guess?
Yeah, my dream in life has always been to create my own product. I always wanted to work in private practice. But now that I've been doing it for almost 12 years, I feel like my true calling is the product space. So it's been something I've always had a passion for and interest for. It was just about timing and finding the right people and figuring out when I'm going to start this. And so that's like how it started. Or sorry, how it really started was when I launched my Instagram back in 2016. I started creating easy gluten-free and dairy-free recipes for people online. And then people just started to make all my recipes and send me photos and tag me. And I was amazed. I was like, wow, people really enjoy all my NN recipes. And then I would get messages daily saying, you should create a cookbook, you should sell your products. And like people kept saying that to me over and over again. And I always wanted to create a product, but I didn't know when it would happen. And because people enjoy my recipes so much, that kind of put me towards, okay, this is something I know is going to be successful because people make it themselves and enjoy it. But now so many people say to me, I would just pay you to make it. I don't want to make it myself, right? So now it's like kind of that's how it came, the best of both worlds. And yeah, it just started. I didn't really plan for this to happen, but it kind of was very natural the way it all played out.
That seems like a trajectory that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. So do you see yourself moving more in that direction?
Yeah, so with this company that I'm working with, who launched the s'mores cookies with Grain Zero, we are working together creating more products in the next couple of years, so more to come. And then in my separate business venture that I'm doing with a close friend of mine and business partner, we also are doing something else, not in the baked goods space, something completely different that hopefully will also come out because that's something that we feel is really missing in the market.
Very cool. And what about a cookbook?
It's something I would do. Yeah, if a publisher, shout out to any publisher who wants to approach me, and I would do that down the road for sure.
And in terms of your clinical work, do you see yourself continuing on working with that diverse range of clients that you have, or do you see yourself moving in a certain direction?
I think moving towards the product side, I love doing private practice. I think I've just been doing it for a very long time. It's hard for me to say I would never do it. I can't see myself completely giving it up, maybe just taking on smaller workload with private clients, but it's not something I'd say I'm going to be doing forever.
And how do people book in with you? Is it online? Is it in person?
Usually it's a lot of it's been word of mouth, and I'll receive emails or DMs of people that say that they want to work with me, or I'll post a story saying, if you're interested in working with me, you can email me, and then we book, an intro call. I learn about what they're looking for, and then I create a specific nutrition protocol that's tailored for them.
Okay. So if somebody's listening, they can just send you an email or DM you. That's the
Yeah,
best way
yeah.
to contact
Yeah,
you.
and
Okay.
I'm very responsive. So if I always say this to people because that's my number one thing is I'm extremely responsive. If I don't respond right away, like a day, obviously give me some time, but usually I'm very good at responding right away.
Yeah. Okay. Great to know. So, was there anything that you wanted to talk about here or that I didn't ask you that you really wanted me to?
I feel like you covered everything. I don't know if there's anything else. Yeah, I mean, listen, if anyone, because I know a lot of your listeners are moms, if they have questions about what to get for their kids or product suggestions, they could always email me or DM me, and I'm happy to help them and guide them because I know grocery stores can be daunting and it's can be really confusing. And there's a lot of noise on social media versus what's healthy, what's not, and it can be a lot. So if people need kind of a smaller list of products or brands that I love, because I don't have a kid, but I have a niece, so I do know that world. I'm always happy to help them.
Do you ever work with moms who have picky eaters, or do you work with them to support their kids to just be adventurous, healthy eaters?
I have, yes. I've definitely worked with a lot of moms who have picky eaters. And the key is, picking options, for example, that are higher in protein that you can kind of sneak in ingredients. So if your kid is just like pasta and tomato sauce, maybe buying a chickpea pasta or black bean pasta. And then if you make your own sauce, maybe sneak in some spinach into the sauce and blend it really well. Or just adding veggies into the sauce is a good trick, and then picking a higher protein pasta. And if they're not crazy, crazy picky and they're okay with some hemp hearts, 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts is 10 grams of protein. So that's a great way to add in or blend in the sauce, extra protein.
And that'd be a great one to add to a smoothie that you wouldn't even see it.
Exactly. Yeah. Smoothies are great for kids because you can just call it a chocolate peanut butter milkshake or a chocolate milkshake, and you could sneak in so much stuff in there.
Yeah, smoothies. I've talked to so many people, and smoothies is one thing that just keeps coming up because, yeah, you can put so many things in there. And then the next step is you freeze the smoothie, and suddenly it's a popsicle, and then it's even more
Yes.
exciting.
Yes. Yes. For sure. And I feel like too with kids, a lot of the times they want to have what their mom's eating. So if you're having a smoothie, then I feel like they'll also want the same.
Yeah, it's really helpful if you don't even offer it to them. You just sit down and you're really excited about whatever you're eating. They're especially when they're little, but it does work to a certain degree when they get older too.
Yeah,
They're curious and they want what other people have, right? They want what's on your plate, not their plate. So,
exactly, exactly.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I think looking at FMT and letting people know about that, I think is so useful. I know, like you say, like this area is going to grow hugely in 5 years. It's going to be so normal. It's just going to be a pill. It's going to
Yeah,
be available in like in pharmacies, maybe. Who knows?
for
But it's
sure.
it's really going to become more normal, and that's exciting. So thank you for being open and sharing your story with that and your struggles with that, because there are a lot of people that are experiencing similar things.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to give people, everyone can make their own decision in terms of their health, but if I knew about this 5, 6 years ago, I think I would have probably explored it sooner. And I just feel there's no guarantees it's going to work. It's only a 20% success rate, but it's just nice to know that there are options so people don't feel like they've lost hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and the work that you're doing, and I can't wait to try out some of your recipes soon.
Thank you so much for having me.